Checking your physique, I don't think I could want you anymore. Chilling with your girl, I'm jealous that I can't just run over and take you on the floor. And I don't wanna cross nobody, I know it's never worth the pain, but I can feel your eyes run down me, and all my sense just floats away.
Hello, welcome back to another stream, Building Master Minutes live. We've got some fixing to do. I don't know how this happened, but if you take a look at this screen right now, something screwed up with the CSS. And this isn't production, this is the development build on my machine. And I'm very confused as to how this has happened, because I actually tried to resolve it before starting the stream and trying to at least understand what the problem was. And I can't find a commit back in time where this fixes itself. So I'm not sure what's going on. So that's going to be one of the first things we look at today. I'm starting a little bit late than I planned today. Just gonna have to deal with it. Had some things pop up last minute, but that's fine. We are going to have to stop off at 4 as well. So it's going to be a couple of hours stream. I'm going to get some stuff done in here. So I've also been setting up on my GitHub a issue that I'm going to be used for tracking some of the stuff. Got 9 tasks at least to get through. Number 1, fixing the CSS generation issues. There's also a bunch of stuff I want to do around app signal. We set that up yesterday, and post hog, which we also set up yesterday. And I also want to set the final setup for mailer send, which we are now approved on. Managed to get that approved. Still waiting on some of the Stripe stuff because I've got some like not on this list, I suppose, is kind of setting up a phone number. That is kind of happening in the background. I won't track that in here, but I can't finish setting up Stripe until I have that set up, so that'll be the plan there. I ain't going to jump straight into it. What is going on with this CSS issue? We need to try and work that out. The other thing that I'm playing with new as of today, slash last night, this evening, yesterday evening, I'm starting to use Amethyst, which is a window tiling manager for Mac. And so I have the ability now to do Alt-Shift-Space. And I have this kind of option of switching around. Also, I can move these windows around so we can kind of have different views that I can just cycle through. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. What's going on? So I'll show you what I tried, because I thought, you know what, okay, I've got a problem here. Clearly something's gone wrong with the code. There's something wrong with the code. We need to roll back to a commit where everything we knew was working. So I'm like, okay, fine. Like probably a couple of weeks ago, maybe when I added authentication, it looked okay, right? I think added authentication, that felt fine. That was 2 weeks ago. I mean, even when I added the Rails page, it still looked okay. So that was last week. But let's go back, like, you know, to something that's ability to delete meetings with details, sure. So we'll copy that commit code. That was the wrong button to press. It was this copy. So we'll copy the full SHA for that commit 2 weeks ago, and we'll do GCO, and we'll paste that in. So now we're on that branch of the code. It does say there's a detached head state. I can do some stuff. I don't need to worry about any of this. I'm not actually going to commit on here. But we are in this code now, and if I control C on here, and actually let's just be ultra sure, because I did this as well. RMF node modules, and also we can RM. What do I want to RM? I don't know. RM the app assets build tailwind CSS, because I figure, you know, those are the things that you know. Or bin/dev. Oh, we need to run npm install. We've just deleted all the files. We'll npm install, we'll pull the packages back in. And then we will bin/dev. Right, okay, fine. We've got our CSS nesting issue coming up again. Makes sense. We've got a problem there. We refresh. Still not working. Odd. Like, we know that this is a working. This was a point in time when this screen definitely worked, because I always start the stream with this screen. And it's not just this screen that's broken, it's the CSS. Because when I actually look in here and look at the code in here, cover and flow are the 2 classes that are kind of responsible for a couple of things in here. One of them is giving margin to the children element, and cover for covering the element and centering everything. I look in here and there is no cover or flow. And I look in the network tab and look for that CSS file. Is it that one? No, that's that one. We just go CSS. We're looking at our tailwind. Well, actually, let's look at our application. Nothing. Makes sense. That's what we expected. In here, cover. Doesn't mention it at all. What's going on? And what's even more confusing is if I jump back over to our code, perhaps we'll have to give a bit more space. If I go space pf and look for app assets builds, Tailwind CSS, if I look in this file for, I don't know, let's say cover, well, there's cover there, header underscore cover. There's dot cover. Cover is in this file. So what the hell? What's going on? And I wonder, actually, yesterday I did bundle install, and perhaps I need to also do that in here. Bundle install. Bundle update, maybe? It does seem that something's gone a bit awry. Perhaps with the way that some of the things are cached, perhaps prop shaft, we're not doing using prop shaft, but sprockets, I don't know. We run bundle update, we'll see where this leaves us. Can I refresh now? Not yet. Refresh now. Still a problem. I don't know what's happening here, but I know it doesn't work. So, interesting problem. So we know we've got to follow it through. We've got to understand what the problems are. Back console, that's on about post-hog.js. Obviously, because, I mean, that's interesting that it's looking for post-hog. Does that mean there's code in here that is looking for post-hog? There's maybe perhaps some caching going on that I'm not aware of. Let's just take a look, actually. So if we go sources, we should be able to bring this across. We'll just alt shift space and give ourselves full screen. We are now seeing some stuff about where's the scripts? So we should be seeing like the application. I mean, there's loads of module preloads in there. We import the application. We should see something about this index of this. But there is no CSS, no JavaScript being loaded in the page. If I log in, I'm pretty sure I told Thingy not to go full screen on that thing. Again, all of this chaoticness, don't know what's going on. Assets, application, that is the CSS. And I can't figure out what's happening here. Now, the other part of the code is definitely loading it. See, this has post hog in it. It shouldn't have post hog, because if we look in here and look at the application.js file, there is no post hog here. So what's going on with my application that I'm getting these files back? Perhaps if I go to app assets builds space pv, that's only got tailwind. Is this because we did the assets pre-compile the other day? I've gone too far. Public assets, all of these are in here, right? I guess I pre-compiled the assets and that's caused it to break. If I go into Git quickly, public. Okay. But there's no assets folder, right? The public assets folder doesn't exist. So I can safely go in here and go rm rf, or we'll stop the server and we'll go rm rf public assets, and then we'll go bin/dev again. Okay. Okay. So it works here. If I Control C, right. So this is narrowing down the problem, and that's what I was seeing in production is when I'm running that precompile. So I think I can actually git checkout main now. Git checkout --dot. Okay, we'll check out main, and then we will npm install to make sure that we've got all of the required packages. We will do bundle install, make sure we've got everything up there. In fact, we'll even do bundle update. Sure all of those are correct. Yes. And then we will do bin/dev. And then we will refresh again. And we should see everything working fine. Yes, because we're not doing the assets precompile. And that was the key thing there. Okay. Now when I go and log out, we're here. And if I go to the regular route there, this is what we expected to see to begin with. Fix that. It's not fixed on prod. And the reason is because the assets precompile runs Tailwind Rails. Tailwind Rails or Rails Tailwind CSS, something like that. I don't remember which way round those things are, but it's one of them. We'll go to the second option. Assets precompile. For the asset pipeline digest the files, the Tailwind output will be generated. Right. So Tailwind CSS build is automatically attached. Do we even need our own? Like, we have Tailwinds here because I set it up to do this, but when you're this is how we're doing it locally. We changed things. Actually, we probably don't want to use Rails assets precompile. I need to figure out how I add a thing to this precompile, or how I remove a thing. In bin, I've got release and test. exe has Tailwind CSS. In the lib, we have asks build Tailwind CSS. What's build about? Is there like, look, there we go. Rake task assets precompile enhanced Tailwind CSS build. This doesn't actually do what I want, so I guess I just need to remove the Tailwind CSS. Have I worked out how to do that? Yeah, I just do telescope live grep. Then we'll do, is it Rails, Tailwind, Tailwind CSS, Rails. But all we have is just this in our gem file. And I think we can probably remove it. So if we did bundle remove Tailwind CSS Rails, because we're just not using anymore. And then if we did bin/dev, should still work. Inter font CSS not present in the asset pipeline. We're not actually using inter font anyway. So app layout, no, that's the wrong one. Space pf application layout. Let's see this here. Delete. Okay. And actually that one's useless as well. So let's try and just do that. And then we'll reload. And it works, it loads it fine. So that should all be working. The part that won't do anything now though, is if I went in here and did Rails assets precompile, that's going to precompile a bunch of assets, it's going to build all the JavaScript, it's going to build all the CSS. And then if I do bin/dev, it'll run and realize it doesn't need to build the CSS because it's already there. The assets folder exists. If I refresh, it seems to have built the CSS properly. I don't know how. I guess nothing created those files. If I ls app or public/assets, is Tailwind in there? No. So it hasn't built our CSS files for us. Oh no, there is Tailwind.css there. cd muster minutes at rm rf public assets ls public assets doesn't exist. Rails assets precompile. It does do the CSS now. App assets columned. It's there. How is that working? I'm a little bit confused. So, bundle and process CSS in Rails with Tailwind, PostCSS and Sass via Node. This is really, I think, the library I wanted to use, not necessarily Tailwind. Even though we use Tailwind here, we've got extra things going on. So, whenever the bundle editor text changes to any of the style sheets in your project, it will. Okay. Because really what we're using is PostCSS, and then PostCSS has the Tailwind. How do you import relative CSS files with Tailwind? How does this compare to Tailwind, CSS Rails, and Dart Sass Rails? I'm relying on Node, basically. I'm reliant on Node because the way that I use Tailwind requires Node. We're using our JavaScript to build our utility classes for us. We've got a bunch of custom JavaScript going on there to do just the CSS. We're not using Node. for any of the actual JavaScript, ironically. But anyway, these ones are simpler, but they don't have all the functionality. If you want to use import statements as part of your Tailwind application JS file, you'll need to configure Tailwind to use PostCSS and then PostCSS import. Why do I get an application CSS not present in asset pipeline production? Sass C, do I have that in my project? If I do the gem file, rep sass gem file dot block rep sass. Okay, doesn't seem like there's anything in there for sass. Fine, okay. Then we will do... See, it looks like it's working, but I'm still doubtful. Pressing the X button, doubt. I don't know what's going on here. I kind of think it's probably best I add this CSS bundling Rails gem. It's actually a little bit simpler by the looks of it, but what it does do for me is add the build task and make sure that it will install and then use whichever tool it needs to use, and the tool will be configured based on like the tool that I'm using, I assume. Like I'm using PostCSS. I don't necessarily want to have to install this, but yeah, look, PostCSS. Because if I look in here, what I've got going on is my actual proc file calls PostCSS. And so the difference in here is it adds all of this into the bundler. Now the bundler here is probably npm, right? But it says add, so that's bundle. PostCSS. I also want to be able to give it a custom config file. Add package JSON script. This would be in the package.json, because then I think what happens is the proc file for Node is just build CSS. So that makes sure that the build CSS has the correct command, and then those things are there. I wonder, I feel like the core of it really is just, the only thing I'm actually missing is the ability to do the build. Like my proc file is already set up, there's a lot of stuff going on in this gem, but really all it's doing for me is making sure that there's the this is done. So these build.rake files in tasks. have a tasks folder? We don't have a tasks folder. And I guess ironically as well, like the proc file that it adds, like when it does the install, proc file for Node, that just does yarn build CSS, unrun build CSS. I'm not sure I'm on the bun hype yet. Maybe at some point I'll move over to bun, but just not there right now. This is the install. Well, I know in this build rake file, this enhance I'm gonna ask ChatGPT because I need to write this down mostly, and then it'll obviously. I have a Rails app. I started with Tailwind CSS Rails, but quickly moved away from it because actually ended up modifying my config to the point I needed to change to use post CSS. Now I'm trying to deploy and running into issues because the assets precompile is using old Tailwind executable, which doesn't support all my post CSS additions. I've now removed the Tailwind CSS Rails gem, but at a loss of what to do next. All I really think I need to have my assets compiled with build command post CSS. Obviously after npm install. I've considered installing CSS bundling Rails, but it feels a bit heavy for what I just need to add to the precompile command. How should I proceed? I guess that's really the question. I already have the package CSS, I already have those things. I have that thing as well. I'm not using Webpacker. Rails-V. Rails 7.1.3. We're on Rails 7.1.3. Not using Webpacker. I've already set up the package.json with the modules and installed post CSS and configured it. Here's my line in the proc file for CSS. I guess as well, it might be useful to give it my package JSON, right? Because here's my package.json. That does seem to work right now, and I don't know why. Yes, the proc file. I've seen these in the CSS bundling Rails and Tailwind CSS Rails gems. They also enhance the assets recompile commands, tasks, I suppose, really. I'm not sure how to go about those. So lib/tasks. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, that was in lib/tasks as well. So maybe I did have the lib tasks. Fine, so there was already that set up. Okay, so was there a namespace for this as well? Namespace CSS build. Fine, so I'll do the same. I think I'll just kind of copy what's going on here. CSS install, CSS build. So if I do css.rake and then do namespace CSS, there's not going to be this. My command in this case is going to be, I mean, the install seems to already be happening, right? But is that because it's already there? If rake task define enhance, it's the CSS build. Okay, so they kind of have like a thing there as well. What did ChatGPT say here? It's just a quote. It's just a thing, right? Change $. This can be npm install. Change the $. And then this can be, this is going to be our command, right? And then we're going to install, unless skip. Change to there, no, delete to, yeah, delete to there, delete to there, delete to there, skip, CSS install. CSS install. Build come. Okay. And then so we'll have that in there. And then what we're looking for here, we're looking for the command. Now the command is going to be in the prop file. Grab that, we'll yank it, and then we'll paste that in. But we'll take the watcher. MPX post CSS app asset style sheets application tailwind CSS. I think this is run from the root of the project. At least I hope it is. Otherwise I don't really know. Might have to figure that bit out. And then so I have that. I'm not using this. Maybe I should. Maybe that'll be better. And then we're going to change this to be change inside the quote CSS build. Which is kind of what's going on there. It's kind of what's going on here, right, as well. Like further down the file. Unless skip CSS build, which I think is an interesting thing to add. So perhaps I should add that. Rails assets precompile. And it does npm install, so obviously that was from our code there. And so I think that probably did do stuff there. I think one of the things I'd like to do is just perhaps do something in here so I know it's done it, and do like oops. Hello? Question mark. Yeah, so hello. Wait. So now we know that we're making sure we run npm install, and then we're bundling our code with post CSS. And actually, I feel like at this point we can change this up and just call this post CSS, because that kind of is the file name we're doing. And then here as well, this can become application CSS. And now, because we don't actually need, we go back to our application CSS here. Like, just get rid of that. Yes. And then we'll rename this. But we really don't want to have Tailwind in there. We'll just change it to post CSS. Afternoon, sir. Hey, Bish. How's it going? I've moved that. Oh, our application HTML layout in here become application now. And then I can do RM, RF public assets. And then do Rails assets precompile. Cool. And so those all should get written to the right place. They still say tailwind though. What's going on there? We should see application in here now. Going alright, no fun stories of Big Corpo yet today. There's still 2.5 hours, 2 to 3 hours left in the day. It's good. Good to hear. Nice easy day. So that should be going to there. So we should be doing Rails or rake CSS build. Well, not as easy as living in XML files that I was checking last week, so that's fun. Assets builds. And then if we do in here and then do rake CSS build. Cool. How about you? Looks like you're styling at the moment. Yeah, I had a few issues with the CSS, and the problem was I'd done a really, I'd taken the base out of the box config and changed it quite a lot to do some quite custom stuff. Specifically, I'm using a library called PostCSS, and I was trying to use Post. I originally started with Tailwind CSS. And then I installed PostCSS and I kind of got it working in development, but the build pipeline for production doesn't. It was still using the old Tailwind CSS stuff, so it wasn't doing any of the benefit of the PostCSS. Specifically in my PostCSS file, I've got these lines here, these import glob, which allows me to just, I don't have to come into this file every time I add a new file into the blocks folder or compositions folder or the utilities folder. And it was just ignoring those because we weren't running PostCSS. We were using Tailwind for building the production version. So half my site just wasn't loading the appropriate CSS. It was doing some of it. I was getting some of the colors and stuff like that, but it was those compositions that kind of mostly deal with the layout wasn't getting imported, so the file never existed. So I was just trying to organize the configuration of those so it gets built properly. Now I've written a little task here for building the CSS. This is what will get run in production, or just before it builds it for production. And yeah, couldn't understand it at first, and then because I'd run pre-compile at the end of yesterday, I essentially had the same thing in development this morning, loaded up, and I was like, what is this? Why have I couldn't. And because these folders, those asset folders, aren't stored in Git, the version control, when I went back to a previous version, those files were still there. So I had old code rendering in I had new code rendering in an older version, and I was like, hang on, something's going on. Took me a little while to get my head around, but managed to get there now. So I feel like we're getting there. I'll do RM, RF, public assets. I can do build, or actually RM, RF, public assets, and also app assets builds. I don't want to remove that file. rmrf public assets. And then rm app assets builds application. And then if I do Rails assets precompile, this should generate all the assets. I shouldn't have a tailwind in there, but I should have a application. I've got .postcss, but I've also got the application JS. That's odd. Like I shouldn't have that there. I was kind of hoping that I'd we're back, no worries. Install the helpers. What are these helpers? Okay. Then there's apply the install. So this is the wide install. I kind of want it to be application, so that's the other bit that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to remove the word tailwind from the style sheet. App assets config manifest. It needs to stop doing that. So manifest. We don't want to auto link those. So I'd remove that from there because that's one of the problems I'm having. Append to file. Sprockets manifest. App assets config manifest. It's interesting that they use the variable there but not here. But it looks like I need to add this builds into the manifest. It's already there because I already had it from before. That's fine. So I have those already. Have that already in there. Remove that. Done that. I'm kind of doing this manually. I'm doing the instructions that this install script is telling me to do. I've done this. I've done all of that, and then we're doing the postcss install specifically, where it's going to copy postcss config. I've already done that. I have my postcss config where I want it to be. I'm going to copy those across. I've done that as well. That's going into app assets, style sheets, application postcss. I have that. This installs these via bundler. Actually, I'm going to install this via npm. That's already done. And then we're not using npm to do that script, although maybe I should. Probably keeps it all in one place, but we have it in here. I think I am going to control E. What have we got? I've got the libtar css, the prop file. I think I'm going to open up the package JSON. I think actually I don't need half the stuff in here. Actually just gonna check something off screen for a second. Do pop, 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 pop. I can't check that there, can I? I need to check that in the terminal. And then what I'll put in here is go to so I only need name, version, and then the dependencies. So I've got the name, don't need that, 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 don't need that. I'm going to keep script. I'm going to remove this one though, and then I'm going to add in a script, which is going to be like CSS build. Yank inside the quotes, and then we're going to do space free. I'm going to P to paste it in there. And then I should be able to npm run css build -- w. Yes, because I can pass that in. So the prop file is going to become that. Change to the end of the line. npm run css build -- w. So rm at public assets, and then we'll rm the assets build, and then we'll do Rails set recompile. So in this version we should only see application. See, it's still doing the post CSS there. I know, did I scroll up too high maybe? Application. Assets builds. Not that. Assets builds. So it's built it. I'm curious though, because it looks like it writes all these files and then does our thing. So the order seems a bit weird for our task. So is there something? And then change inside the quotes. This is now going to run npm run css build. rm app. Yes, and rm rf public assets. Rails assets precompile. See that part here at the bottom needs to happen before this part, because otherwise we end up with, I mean, our CSS isn't in here anymore, but we're also not getting our, it's putting them all in the place and then running this, but the order is wrong. So let's go back to here. I set up this fake file, but the build is happening after the assets precompile, copies and moves all the file. So my built file never gets included. Like, what's going on? That is what I'm doing. That's already how that looks, right? Like, what? I'm not rebuilding the entire set pipeline. This library does it, right? So like, what am I missing that this library does that we're not? Bobber. Oh, that's interesting. We'll have one of those. RF assets builds just gets rid of everything in there, which actually is quite good. So I have a CSS folder or something. D for directory, and do CSS. Move. No, what am I trying to do here? Can I do this? Build. Yeah, cool. And then in here I can make a new file called blobber.break. Remove CSS builds. At this point I kind of just am setting these up. The problem I have, I think, is this. CSS bundling tasks install command and CSS tasks build command. The build command is very specific. It just runs build CSS. And the tool is just looking for the package file to work out what file it should use. And we have that file, so perhaps I just I mean, I don't need to run the install because I think I've already kind of done everything the install is doing. But this will at least just give me this. And Rails app template location, like it gives us the commands, but all that's going to do is run the post CSS install, which is going to require the helpers. That's just some functions, doesn't actually do anything. The install here empties the asset builds, keeps the file asset builds, and looks at the manifest, adds the builds to manifest, which we've already got. We don't need to do that. Stops linking the files automatically, so we're removing that, which I've removed. That's set up, that's set up. That's fine. That's the git ignore file. Remove. That was a very weird notification. App asset style sheets application. Remove. Yes, we've done that. Go in here and make sure that there is the style sheet link tag, which I've done. So many notifications. I used to cut back on notifications all the time, but I need to do a bit of a purge again on notifications because it's becoming a bit much. Not sure what happened there. Let's see. We have our application HTML CSS. Yep. We've done that. Default is missing, and then it just tells us. We don't need to worry about that. We have our package file, we have our proc file, we have Foreman, done all of this. So all of this should be done. So I can possibly actually just delete that folder. Can't delete the directory because there's stuff in there. If I do that, rm ref lib tasks css, and it's gone. And then we can do bundle add css bundling rails. Then we're going to do Rails assets clobber. That should clear out our asset folders. I'm back. One thing when you're working from home and doing laundry load at the same time does help. They should have also removed the assets builds folder, right? Yeah, there's nothing in there. Fine, good. Apart from that. Rails assets recompile. Build CSS, fair enough. So we know that CSS bundling is working. What we didn't do right was our package.json actually should have been the other way round. Build CSS. Remember to actually grab it out of the machine when it's done before it starts to smell. That is the challenge. Like, it's too easy to start something that's like, oh, there's 5 minutes left. Or, oh, I'll give it 5 minutes and then get stuck in something for an hour or two. Or like, Change words. Build CSS. We are going to have an ad in about a minute. I'm running ads just to make sure we don't have any pre-rolls for people who are joining. So hopefully it won't be too long, but I'll actually probably take a break. I'll probably take a break at the same time as well. Rails assets. Rails assets clobber. I'm going to clobber the assets. Give them a good bash. Assets recompile. Well, for me, it's 2 more calls, so get it now into our site. Exactly, yeah. That did it in the right order. I don't know what I did differently to what that did differently, but it did it right. So we should have in here app assets application. That's the JS. Where is it? ls l public assets. Type that into grep and we'll go for application. There is one there. 5168. Did I somehow miss that? Was that in here at all? Oh look, there's post CSS in it again. Have I just scrolled back too far? Yeah, I've scrolled back way too far. Application. Maybe it doesn't show it in the logs. Oh, it's there. There it is. 51682. Fine. We were in an ad, so I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know what I was doing. Pressing all the buttons, the wrong buttons, in the wrong order. Button back thing once again. Yeah. As long as it's in the right place and sticks in there, then a yes. Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to check that the build process was working properly. So that should be good. I don't need these anymore. And close some of those down. We should also be able to run bin/dev. Oh, before I do that, press that too soon. Rails assets. I need to clobber the assets. Otherwise, we'll end up with those forever, and we won't ever see changes. Now, if I run bin/div, CSS should start, and we should see, yeah, that's npx running. We can see it's running that command in watch mode. That's good. And we should now be able to go over here, refresh. The CSS looks okay. There's obviously some things I still need to do some styling on. There's a lot of things I still need to do styling on, but we're getting what we expect. So we can go free, we can do, actually go back over here, we'll do git, what have we got? Gem file, we got rid of Tailwind CSS, and CSS bundling. Yeah, prop file, swapped it out to call npm script. Removed our style sheet from the manifest. The manifest just calls build now and grabs them from there. We got rid of the application CSS, changed that. We actually renamed the file, which is now picked up. We've removed that line entirely because actually we're just going to use the style sheet link tag application. And we tidied up our package.json files. So CC, I can go in here, we can say I guess we fixed a bug. We kind of fixed a bug, kind of added a deployment pipeline. Is there continuous integration? CD, continuous. Config, add, update CI build system. I guess we kind of did that. Swap Tailwind CSS or CSS bundling. We were using Tailwind CSS initially. I should be clearer here as well. It's Tailwind CSS Rails. We are still using Tailwind CSS, but we have changed some things. We're using Tailwind CSS Rails, but then we did massively configuring it differently. And used post CSS, swapping the libraries around helps solve some challenges like building for production. Push. So if we go in here, we go hatchbox. We can, once we know that we've deployed, we can click deploy. And then we'll also take off the maintenance mode just so I can confirm and check. And then we'll be on app.masterminutes.com. This will install everything and it will run the assets pre-compile command before it builds, and then that will do the things that we've added, like CSS bundling Rails. I refresh this, still the broken version. I log out. Go to the home page, still the very broken version. Wait for all this to install. I'm actually going to, I've kind of got a bit of a flow on here now and stuff is working. So what I'm going to do is while this is building, I'm going to go into repository and I'm just going to enable automatic deploys. And that will just help that every time I push to the Git repository, our version control system, it will automatically run this build. You can see down here, no personal API key, disabling that. Running Rails DB migrate. You can see there is our Rails assets precompile. Deploy complete. I refresh. fixed it. I'm going to go back into here, enable the maintenance mode again while we figure out what our next port of call is going to be. So in GitHub, have an issue, we can actually tick off the first issue. We've fixed our CSS issues. Next thing I want to do is configure app signal. So we go here. I was digging around last night looking at all of the different options. Turns out actually there's a bunch of plugins. So app signal, you import the library, you actually have to do manual stuff with it. There also there's integrations, and then there's libraries as well. So we're going to configure some stuff. The first thing we're going to do maybe is just add these plugins in. So there's a couple in here. There's breadcrumbs console. So we're going to read through the plugins, see what they do, see which ones we want to pick up, and then install them, set them up. Now, breadcrumbs console, what does that do? Automatically adding a breadcrumb on every call to any of the supported console methods. So I don't know what that actually means. Breadcrumbs are helpful on the thing, but oh, so any console.log becomes a breadcrumb. I think that's useful because if we wanted to see, kind of want to see console logs appearing in there. So we will install this. Now the way you install these, it looks like you just grab the thing, add them in, import them, add that in. Interesting, they're all just plug-in because that's going to be a bit odd for how this works. I guess I could just alias them in some way. It'd be like breadcrumb plugin, breadcrumb network. So we've got breadcrumbs to the console, breadcrumb network, automatically adding a breadcrumb on every network request. Okay, sounds like it might be useful. Window events. So window events is definitely one I want to add because this is the one that allows us to automatically capture any unhandled rejections or errors that appear. And then plugin path decorator, what does this one do? Decorates all outgoing spans with the current path read by window.location.path name. Okay, so that also sounds quite useful. And so we'll install a couple of these. We will do bin/import map in the path decorator, the window events, and the console as well, and possibly the network as well. Okay, not sure what I needed tslib and isomorphic and fetch, but sure, fine. And then if I go into here, find our application JS file, import, well, let's just paste these things. How should we do this? Well, on this line, I could swap out all of the spaces for new lines. I don't know how to do new line like in there on any of them. Any of them swap spaces for new line. /R instead of /N. Right, okay. So on this line, we're going to swap all of the spaces for /R. G. There we go. That does that. And then we are going to swap the everything star on that line for import plugin from, and then is it /1? I still haven't near them regex swap. Like, how do I? Yeah. Nope. Back references. I think the one thing I needed to do was perhaps just add the brackets around that. So then I could do /1. Unterminated regular expression literal. And I've now lost it. So, oh, that's telling me about that. S/* import /1. So it looks like I need to backslash all of the, like backslash that, backslash that. There we go. And then I can do import /1. Yes, fine. So import plugin from /1. Once I learn that, I think something like that's going to be really quick to just do stuff with. / space. Plugins declared but its value is never read. Also, these are all called plugin. So, as path decorator plugin. Is it as window events plugin breadcrumb, or like console breadcrumbs plugin as network breadcrumbs plugin, and then down here const app signal that. Then what do I do with these? It says like just call.use on the plugin, so if there are any options that I want to set. So I'll be like app signal.use after decorated plugin, window event plugin, console breadcrumbs, network. So if I just go in here and look going on there, if I refresh, I'm not actually, am I running this locally? I don't really remember what's going on with it locally. I mean, obviously this code is here, we have two different keys, so That's good. Already got an error. If I go to app signal, I must have signed in with GitHub. And cool, one. Be right back soon. No worries. No worries. Development. We should start seeing an error. That's assuming we're going to see data in here. Type error front end. 2 seconds. Again, I need to sort my stream deck out because I keep losing what the buttons are. Unfortunately, I might have to call it there, but I will quickly commit this and then put it live because I think this has worked. I've got the plugins working. You can see in here the summary and the type error. This means I can track these issues in here. I think this can even send it to GitHub and I can have a GitHub issue that I can then have to fix. So I'll commit that and then just mark that as done. We'll do configure plugins for app sync as our git commit message, and then yeah. Interesting. Our import map has added those files. Have we been doing that for the other ones? There is no vendor folder here for the others. Why did it decide to do it like that for that one? I do not know. It's just pinned them. But the other ones, it didn't bother with that. Okay, fine. I can't commit those right now because I don't know what's going on with that. I guess we'll resolve it next time. I don't know if I'll keep straight. I'll be back on a bit later. But I have to run off now, unfortunately. Thanks for hanging out, though. I'll catch you next time. Did manage to sort the CSS issue out, though, so making good progress. We'll fix it soon.